All right, so we've got a basic levels mix set. Again, there's no panning yet, there's no EQ on anything yet. And this is just all super basic. We're not using compression at all. We're not using any reverb yet. We'll add a little bit of that later, I think. But for now, let's go back and just talk about the stereo field and panning. So when we're talking about panning, you see this is set at like center. This is that's actually left just a little bit, but we're starting with all of these pan settings at center, right in the middle of the stereo field, or very close to that. You can see I've got I lied. This one's too far over, so I'm setting that back to the middle, and we'll go back and kind of rebuild stuff. So we have our kick drum, and you always put the kick drum right dead center, right down the middle, and you have the bass also right dead center. Sometimes you can move the bass just the tiniest bit to one side and the kick just the tiniest bit to the other side, but you want them to be as close to the middle as they can be. The reason for moving them just a little bit out of the way of each other is that they both cut through a little bit better, supposedly, if you do that. Now the snare, a lot of people will pan the snare just a little bit over here because that's where it would be to the left. In a drum kit, if you were actually sitting at the drum kit, the sound of the snare would come a little bit to the left. Same thought is if you're sitting at a drum kit, the hi-hats would be over to the far left. You can't really hear them right now because they're not playing. The toms only play routinely, and there's multiple toms, so you would need a stereo mix for them, which I don't know if you have that at the church or not. And the room mix is coming from everywhere. So that kind of gives you that to work with. Piano is real subtle in here, but it also could get in the way of things. You can move that a little bit to the left or the right if you want to. Again, there's no right way for doing this. This is just kind of how I would approach things at home. You have a layered synth, which you can barely hear. You can use that and warm it up. If it gets to be too much later and gets in the way of things, we can turn it back down. But I'm putting that a little bit over to the right, and then we'll add in the B3, which I can't hear. So as you turn things up, the danger is losing your kick and your snare, which you don't ever want to lose the kick or the snare or the bass. They've got to kind of cut through. That's a lot of B3. I'm going to say let's put that a little further over that way, and then turn it back down so it's not in the way of everything. The acoustic kind of drives the song, so we'll turn it up. I'm going to put that just a little bit to the right. We want it kind of in the middle because it's important. And then we'll keep adding things in. Bass is always right down the middle, or just a hair, a tiny little bit to one side. And we'll add in an electric guitar. And the reason you're moving things a little bit to one side or the other is it gives everything more definition. You're getting instruments out of the way of the other instruments and vocals out of the way of the other vocals. But you want it to sound natural too. If you put it all the way to one side or all the way to the other, sometimes that sounds kind of weird. And lead vocal is almost always dead center. You just leave it dead center because that's got to cut through. And the frequencies of it will not clash typically with the bass or the kick drum, so they don't get in each other's way a whole lot. And then harmony vocals, you can move one harmony over to the other side just a little bit, maybe like where the singer would seem to be, and you can use the stereo field to get some of the other harmony vocals out of the way. We'll move this one over that way, and we have the really high one, which is real subtle anyway, so we'll just kind of leave that like that. So you can hear how the stereo field kind of opens things up a little bit, at least if you're listening through stereo AirPods or whatever. And now we're going to go back to the mix and see, is there something that we can't hear? Is there something that's overwhelming everything else? Do we need to turn something up or down? Feels like there's a lot of electric. So I'm going going to turn that down some. And just the act of turning that down made the acoustic kind of stand out a little bit more, which we kind of wanted it to. Again, I'm mixing through headphones, which is not the best, so I may be missing some of what it actually sounds like, but you get the idea. And you want the drum kit to be prominent. Right now the vocals are maybe a hair too much above the drum kit, so we can try and group them all together. If I can remember how to make a group out of these. Yeah, it looks like I can't, so I'll just turn everything down vocally about 3 dB. And that's probably too low for the vocals. You want everything to sound full and warm in the band with the instrumentation, and you need the vocals to cut through and be nice and clean and clear. That's the goal, and it's really easy for things to get out of balance with each other. I think I'd like a little bit more of that lead. And we'll go back and listen to that again. And just to emphasize the significance of some of these parts, I'm going to mute the kick and the bass, and I want you to hear how the song just kind of gets totally weak if you get rid of them. That's why it's so important that everything is heard, especially like for the instrumentation, kick and the drum kit and the bass. Here's with everybody in. If you take the kick out, all of a sudden it's like something's gone. If you take the bass out, you lose a whole bunch of the low end. If you take the rest of the drums out, you have that. So we'll put everything back just to give perspective. This is with everybody in except the bass. So the bass is just crucial because of the physics of the low energy that it kind of puts out. So that's adding it back in.